Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. Today I'm very excited to welcome Morgan Goodlander, who is the director of the Get Institute, and I will put all his information below in the description. But today we're going to be talking about magic and mystery and how they can help you live a more authentic life. I had the privilege of knowing Morgan now for I don't even know how many years, but let's say 15, something about like that. And Morgan is not an astrologer, so we're not going to have a ton of astrology that we're going to talk about, but I'll probably pepper some in because that is my frame of reference. But Morgan is very wise. He was somewhat of a spiritual teacher to me. We were sort of talking about how to introduce him, and I said he's kind of a spiritual guru dude. So that's what we're going to call him. He consults with businesses, he consults with people. He's just your overall spiritual guru dude. So, welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. If you haven't been here before, we look at the cosmos and the universe and how the timing and everything going on is really intended to support us down here on Earth. So, welcome, Morgan.
No, thank you. It's very interesting for me to be here, and it's good to see you again. It's been a while since we've had a chance to really talk. So
Yeah.
um, I'm happy to be here. I'm trying to think. Did we meet at Esalen many years ago? Is that how? That seemed like Esalen was our connection, or did I get that wrong?
No, Esalen was our connection in a way. You were recommended to me through Esalen people.
Okay.
I think Seymour, maybe, I want to
Really,
say.
Seymour Carter.
Maybe
My,
not.
my,
I can't
I haven't
remember.
learned from. Yeah, I think I was teaching with John Soper at that time. I don't know if you knew John Soper, but
I
John
don't.
was a
You
colleague
know, I
of.
may have just I'm a researcher extraordinaire, so I may have
Yeah,
just come from Esalen and said
yeah.
I'm looking up some other Esalen people. So, yeah, I've
Uh,
I think you came to my wedding party, and we've definitely chatted intermittently between the years. But I saw you on Instagram again, and you had some really interesting things to say that made me want to reach out and connect with you again to kind of get another platform and get some additional people
mhm.
to hear the kind of work that you do and hear a little bit more about your philosophies and the way you help people. So how do you counsel people or advise people? What do you define as magic and mystery, or how do you sort of talk to somebody about what that is that isn't familiar?
Yeah. Well, one of the ways that I've been points of departure for that subject, my elevator speech, so to, if you want to talk about it in that way, I talk about experience reoccurrence. It's something that everybody can relate to, that things seem to be repeating. We have a lot of the same struggles in life throughout time, even if we go to therapy or we do all these different things, we try to be creative and see things from different ways, and all these things that we do to expand ourselves. But many of these things just keep repeating, and right, and the struggles keep repeating, and we see that in our intimate relationships with our spouses and in our family systems, and we see it in the world. The world is we're all caught in what I call experience reoccurrence. And it's very hard to get out of that reoccurrence because it's supported by a what I we call at the Institute a constellation of attention. We're putting our attention in certain places, and we're telling ourselves similar stories about what we're paying attention to. And as a result, we keep experiencing the world in a very similar way and coming up with the same answers. So we're taking yesterday's answers and applying them today. And as a result, our future is our past. We're sort of caught in a Groundhog Day situation. And that's happening across the board on every level. So experience reoccurrence for me is something I think simple people can understand it, and they can see it happening everywhere. And we see it playing out on the world stage right now with a, Cold War repeat. I mean, we really thought we were done being in some kind of an oppositional place with Russia. I mean, that was the 50s and the 60s, and jumping under your desk at school because you're afraid you're going to get bombed. It's being invented all over again, and of course that It's not a new thing. We've heard history repeats itself. So, yeah, okay, that's right. History does repeat itself, and we need to wake up and become more conscious of those, how that experience reoccurrence, how we're participating in that, because that's what keeps us stuck and revolving instead of evolving.
I like that term, experience reoccurrence. That's the term
Mhm.
that very much mirrors the kind of astrology that I do. I do evolutionary astrology, and I explain to my clients often that karma is not necessarily like tit for tat, which a lot of people have this kind of karmic belief system that you stole a horse in a past lifetime. So, someone will steal your car in this lifetime. I kind of argue that it's more you stole a horse in a past lifetime, so you're more likely to steal someone's car in this lifetime, because we repeat the patterns endlessly like a merry-go-round until we have the conscious thought to stop. And consciousness takes effort. It takes effort to break those karmic cycles, or, if you don't believe in past lives, then it really is just in your life, your your past and your karma is what you're creating today. So are you going to stretch yourself and do something different? So it sounds like it's got a very, different ways of getting there in how we discuss it. But I very much agree with that.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the beauty of experience reoccurrence. You see it everywhere you look. You know, the the Git Institute. It's the Git Institute for the Study of Experience Organization. Actually, is the whole title. And everywhere you look, experience is being organized. We are organizing our experience at all levels, down from the micro to the macro. So anytime if you're alive and you're breathing, you're experiencing, and that experience has an organization to it, has a kind of repetition, because it's the consistency of it that gives us a sense of consistency in our being. There are things that are consistently reoccurring. So the positive side of experience reoccurrence is we get a consistent sense of self. The negative side is, yeah, we get a consistent sense of self, right?
And like when you look at the political structure and the political system, you kind of see even the two parties, making the same mistakes over and over again. And, so then we end up with this very binary choice that ends up so almost, we feel they're not the same. I get that.
Mhm.
But you still feel like you can't help but feel let down in some ways that we can't break out of the patterns over and over again.
Are you kidding me? We're bombing women and children in their sleep in concrete buildings, crushing them to death with concrete and steel, and that's the best answer we can come up with. I mean, think about it. I mean, really, that is the best answer. We're going to be involved in this kind of mass destruction and death, and which is completely medieval behavior we've got going. It's crazy. People are really entranced. They're not awake. What happens is in the experience reoccurrence is stress and fear gets involved. We we um, we get triggered into a fear response for our security. Once we get triggered into that fear response, and that what I call the loss architecture, we start to believe we're going to lose something. We're going to lose our liberty or our freedom or our job or our spouse or our culture or our religion, whatever the loss is. We get into that loss architecture. It's like a trance. And once we get in there, we start to convince each other, oh, we better be careful. Those people are really dangerous over there. We should really do something. You can't talk to them. They're unreasonable. And we actually talk ourselves into, as we did in Iraq, bombing the hell out of some poor bunch of folks. And, we've justified it. We've come up with an argument that somehow makes sense. And every country on the globe seems to be susceptible to this kind of, well, we're all susceptible. We could do it even with our neighbors in our own neighborhoods. So that you're describing is like the reoccurrence. The reoccurrence gets triggered by reactivity, and that reactivity has an organization to it, and it has its own momentum. It's a kind of like a somatic addiction. We get addicted to those anxiety states where we get it because we're used to being in them, and our nervous system gets organized around, the next dangerous moment and the next threat. And so we get organized to have those experiences. And the problem is that we, instead of realizing that an experience organization that's repeating, that it's the experience itself that's repeating, we get hypnotized on why we should be afraid and arguing about why we should be afraid and arguing why we should react and justifying why we were in the state of aggression that we're in, or the state of dysregulation that we're in. But we don't see the forest through the trees. Then we don't get that actually what's happening is that those things are the secondary excuse for the addiction to fear and loathing, and the addiction to over controlling, the addiction to the attempt to control what we can't. As you said, you can't control most of these things we can't control. But that sense of wanting to figure out, wanting to predict, wanting to control, these are all the things that, and wanting to appear perfect, or wanting to be, so good. All these things that are leading us towards this repetition of failure, because we can't do all those things. We can never do all those things anyway. And it's confirmation. It's confirming. It's confirmation bias, because once again we feel all those things, right, that we've tried not to feel. So the whole thing is reaction, repetition, reoccurrence. I mean, this is the way the whole world is. Everyone is asleep to the reality that that's what we're doing. We're a bit like zombies out there, going around, through our day with a very little awareness of actual choice and awareness of what we're capable of.
So, what do you do in your own life, or what do you counsel those that you work with to do to sort of break out of that repetition?
So the first thing is to realize that insecurity and fear, the loss architecture, is at the core of it. Okay. We're in a situation that is not understandable in the way we would like to understand it. Life cannot be understood, number one. Life can be lived, it can be experienced, but it can't be understood. And so the whole struggle to understand life is a misnomer in and of itself. That's a neurotic tendency. The reason we want to understand it is so that we can control it and we can feel safe and we can navigate, right? But reality is that's not how it works. That it just isn't the way it is. What we have to do is experience life. That's how we figure out how to get through it, by living. And the process of swim, like if you use the metaphor of swimming, you get in the pool and you swim around. Swimming is something that you do. Living is something that we do. We can't figure out every moment, what the next stroke is. We have to get in there and actually swim. We have to dance. We have to breathe. We have to do it. And in the process, we discover what we need in that process of, putting one arm in front of the other. How do I need to stretch more? Do I need to relax my breathing? Or, right, we have to get feedback in real time. So I'm always wanting to wake people up to become present, to get into real time and to adjust into the flow. And in the flow is mystery. It's mysterious. You don't know if you should stretch further or you should pull that hand back. We don't know what to do until we're actually doing it. If you're dancing, you don't know what your next move is until you do your dance. You can't predict and control it. So this is, the first thing I want people to get into is into the flow of the present. The second thing is to realize when their anxiety and their fear is getting triggered, because that's what's going to trigger the repetition defense. That's when they're going to start repeating, is when they get afraid, because under stress we regress. We go back to what's familiar, and then we start to recreate our past. Now, why? Of course, it makes totally sense if you think about it. I get scared. I don't know what to do, or I think I don't know what to do. And then I remember, what did I do last time? Now, I've just based my present moment on my past. Ah, Last time I did this, I'm going to do that. Now I've done that. Now my future is my past. That's how it works. The future becomes our past. And hence, now we're in the same, very similar Cold War situation that we were in before because we did exactly the same thing we did before. And very likely that Mr. Putin is doing the same thing, that they did before. We're both repeating. You know,
That's what I love about astrology, and it's not always easy. I'm a human just like everyone else, right? And so
yeah.
I have studied spiritual texts. I have studied with people like you, guru dudes like you, and I've really, been privy to some really amazing astrology teachers, and I really feel like that is my gift. But at the same time, I'm human and I forget sometimes and I slip into my own repetitions. And the astrology chart is a really wonderful way for me to ground into a, a, a North Star, right, of trust. And I think a lot of times when people come for a reading, they're looking for a window into themselves that they already know, but it helps. That dialogue helps open up a consciousness that then can help them take that next step and break out of that repetition that they know so well.
We all have these parts of ourselves that are represented in the planets and in these planetary conjunctions and oppositions. I don't know the names of trines and whatever they are. These things give us insight into our experience. So that's fantastic. I think I love it. That's what I like about astrology. So yeah, not only is the map part of it important, but the other part is that it puts us in touch with a truth, which is we're a part of a cosmological system, universal system, and we know. And I don't want to overuse the quantum mechanics metaphor, but we know that we're all interconnected at the subatomic level,
Mhm.
and that the system is aware of itself, so that if you and we have the examples of that where if you affect the spin of the particle at one place, it simultaneously is changed across the universe faster than the speed of light, blah 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 blah, because of entanglement or spooky action at a distance. This is the way it is. So astrology for me is a great metaphor because it puts us in a position to like, wait, there are things that are very, very far away, like these planets, and much further, that have a direct, if the instrument is sensitive enough, will pick up because in fact we're all part of the same um, the same being, and that to me is fantastic. So, if you just take the idea that astrology is a kind of organization of experience, a blueprint for us to discover ourselves, and the fact that it puts us in touch with the greater ecosystem in which we exist, cosmological ecosystem, both of those things make it really interesting and worthwhile.
Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. My people are not the people that are coming to me asking me, to predict their future. And if they are, I try to set them straight that I'm not a psychic. And, I'm here to help them find their inner truth, really. And that inner truth has to do with the fact that we're all connected, and there is synchronicity and there are reasons why things happen. I always say at the end of my videos, there's a reason and a season for everything, and the universe is conspiring to help you. And if we can get into that flow and we trust that there's a reason, even if something horrible is happening in your own personal life, what can you learn from it? Because what you were saying before, too, like where you put your attention is going to
Yeah,
grow.
but that's what I talk. That's what I mean when I say constellation of attention. Exactly what you're describing. You know, there's a constellation to it, and the knee pain, it will be greater or less important, or more figure or less figure for different people. Some people will just completely ignore it. Others will. I've had both cases where, I'm either ignoring some horrible physical thing that's going on with me, or I'm noticing every nuance. I feel every possible change in the knee, and I'm hyper aware of, oh my God, it's warmer than it was 2 hours ago. And so yeah, that where we put our attention, reality grows where our attention grows. It's so that which we don't own owns us. And the one of the reasons that we have the situation we're in is that we, fail to recognize what was happening because we don't see it in ourselves. So, what you see outside, it's a house of mirrors. What we see outside is autobiographical for what we are inside. And the blind spots that we have on the outside are the blind spots we have on the inside. And so those of us who are blindsided by this appearance of Mr. Trump, we're
By the
blindsided
shadow of our country.
by the shadow. It's like, whoa, how did we lose touch with that? Because this is very archetypical, very primitive aspect of ourselves that we would have been better off having
Integrate.
a greater awareness. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have this guy wouldn't even be able to run. I would hope for us all that we can relax a bit more, embrace the mystery of life a bit more, evoke the poetry of life more, enjoy the great beauty and our artistic creations that we as humans have been able to produce over time, and the wonderful things that we're capable of doing with each other, and put that in the foreground of our attention, and to organize around beauty and love uh, and a manifestation of our higher qualities. That's what I really hope for us all, and to stop investing in these very archaic fears of survival, and fears of competition, and fears that we're gonna, you have to take care of number one, and if you don't take care of number one, you're some kind of a liberal, idealistic child, who has no idea about what life is really like. We know what life is really like. We know that we're capable of the most heinous and terrible acts, and we're actually, just look at the news. It's obvious we're
Right, a lot.
participating in that on every day.
It's
Of course
unfolding
we
before
can.
us.
It's unfolding. Of course we can destroy and kill and screw each other over, but we also have a wonderful ability to love each other, and to create fantastic works of art, and to have beautiful villages and cities, and marvelous countries. We have all the other side of it as well. So, let's not be naive that the shadow side doesn't exist. It does, and we don't have to choose it. We can do a lot better if we just wake up. But here's also the blessing and the curse, is that it appears as if we all have to make it together. That the work on the reason that we have to work on ourselves individually is that it's only when we have a certain number of individuals at a higher state of consciousness that you're going to see that shift uh, on a more global level. And so it's really, we can't leave each other behind. We really have to move together into higher states of consciousness. And that means that not only do we have to do the work on ourselves, but we have to do it in contact and in connection with the other. Then we'll get the kind of, but we can't do it through, we can't legislate it through, is what I'm trying to say. We can't do it through the government. We're not going to be able to do it through these more mechanistic, materialistic mechanisms. We have to do it together, and with a great respect for each other, and that's sometimes a difficult task. It means we have to really do the work.
Mhm.
as you
Yeah.
were saying, we have to do the work. And the good news about the work is that waking up doesn't really take that much energy,
I think
right? It
this,
takes more
I think
energy to do
it's harder
crappy
for
things.
some people that I think this is where I believe in sometimes cosmic timing, because sometimes I can see when somebody's more primed to wake up a little bit, or like a lesson is coming. You can have a really challenging transit that allows you to do the work that then like wakes you up a little bit. Or if you've already woken up during an easy transit, then the hard transit is not that hard. So, but I've seen it time and again when people really just are like, they don't understand what I'm saying, or they're not fully grasping it. And I just have to respect that that's where they are in their journey right now. And I encourage them, and I want to tell them, and I can tell them what to do. I can prescribe it, because I am like, that's my karma, is like little Miss Bossy. And
Yeah.
got to come to it on their
You
own.
know, everything that is really good about people, I'll just cut to the quick. Everything that's really good and transcendent and amazing about us is in our artistic ability, our creative ability, our ability to bring into the world things that are out of the invisible. We bring them. We brought this whole thing out of the invisible. The house that you're in was in someone's mind, and then it went onto a piece of paper, and now you're living in it. It's all coming out of the invisible, out of this wellspring of amazing creativity and infinite possibility. And all that doesn't get recognized, and we end up fighting over some of the most basic and silly stuff that is fueled by folks that are unfortunately really just asleep to their own anxieties. Look for the place in your life, look for everything that's repeating in your life, and take a moment to note those things and to start to wake yourself up to the repetition. I mean, some of those repetitions are okay, but especially if they're ones that are not, for whatever reason, you prefer not to be repeating them. Make note, because it's in that experience of reoccurrence. If you just become more conscious, you'll develop more sense of choice. And if you see that it's repeating because there's some fear-based thing in there, that's why the repetition is always underneath. The repetition is always an architecture of loss and always some anxiety. So it's a simple formula. Once you get it, now all you have to do is look at what's repeating, what's the fear of loss, what's my reaction, and you can start to wake up and have a life that you right now probably couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. No, when I stepped outside of my anxiety loops, I manifested a really fantastic life for myself. And so that's part of why I wanted to create this YouTube channel, was to share these kinds of teachings with people, and to share a little bit more how the universe can support us if we look at the ways in which we are telling ourselves an old story
Mhm.
that can be rewritten.
Exactly. Exactly. And I guess you'll put my information on whatever you do with this, because I really believe that everything is connected. We are all connected. Our realities are intertwined together. And if there's somebody who's watching this and who's really moved and really hears what we're saying and hears what I'm saying, send me an email. These are not coincidence that we met. I can
Mhm.
tell you of all the thousands of clients I've had in the last 30 some years I've been practicing. None of this stuff is coincidence. There is a real energetic phenomena that happens between people. That's why we meet each other. And that, the whole thing is, none of it is happening really out of total chance. There's a invisible web. So if you're hearing this out there and you're touched by what we're saying, and you're interested in the work, please go to the Get Institute, check it out, send me an email. I don't have a lot of time, but you never know. Maybe I will have time and I'll be able to fit you in, and we'll do
Yeah,
something.
and I'll put your Instagram and we can talk
Yeah,
about what exactly you want on there because he has like little teachings on Instagram and I don't believe you're on YouTube. Is that correct?
I have something on YouTube. I had a lot of stuff on YouTube that I hid for right now. I want to kind of switch it up. And I'm going to start doing on Sundays, I'm going to start doing some free online public programs,
Great.
probably mostly in August. So check out, go check those, come back to the website and see. And I'm doing retreats and workshops and that kind of stuff.
Morgan, I'm super grateful as always for your
Yeah.
presence in my life. And I think I wrote Morgan a little sappy thing once about, I've had several really amazing teachers and he's one of them. So I highly encourage people, if what he's saying speaks to you, to reach out to him in some way. Like he's saying, like there is a reason we tune into what we tune into.
Yeah. And
We don't know
what,
what somebody is going to bring into our lives. And
yeah,
how one person can help another person and magnify their gifts. And that's the magic. That's the mystery. Like we're all in it together. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna
yeah.
be good.
It's amazing how people, I'll get emails from people and either, I may not have time in my schedule to see them, or they may be somewhere else and they can't come to the workshop, or, whatever. It happens where it doesn't line up. I can't tell you how many times that a year later, 2 years later, 4 years later, somehow my time will open up for individual, or I'll be in some country and they'll come to my workshop. And it just happens over and over again. So whenever I see an email now, I've just learned to ignore none of them because somehow I end up meeting that person, whether it's, next week or 5 years from now. It's really fascinating.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Well, I think Morgan would agree then that there is a reason and a season for everything, and the universe is conspiring to help us. And so it's just time that we wake up a little bit and give the universe a hand. See where
That's right.
they're lending us a hand, or it is lending us a hand.
Yep,
And
and trust that if we end up with some bizarre fascist regime in control of the country, it will be okay. I mean, it is all part of the process.
that is kind of, I've got this other person that I've been talking with also. His name is Ronnie Pontiac, and I can't predict what's going to happen with this election by any stretch of the imagination. I have a total Cassandra complex, and I usually know what's going to happen. I knew he was going to be elected in 2016. No idea this time. I've got no idea, and whatever's going to be, like we're going to get through it. So
And he does have a lot of challenging transits from what I've heard through my astrology grapevine. So who knows?
I
Maybe
think things are
there'll be a
gonna.
timing of reckoning for
Oh,
the
I think the reckoning for him is coming. It's coming, but will it come before November? I have not a clue. So, anyway, Morgan, lovely to see
yeah,
you. Maybe you'll come on again sometime.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank